Etsy's CEO just dumped $26 million in stock and is vanishing. If your income depends on Etsy, this is your warning shot because he knows something that we don't. Sales are down, buyers are leaving, stock crashed 12% when they announced a new CEO, and most sellers are just waiting, hoping that it gets better. But here's what no one's telling you. When Etsy finally collapses, thousands, if not millions of sellers are going to panic and jump ship at the exact same time. And if you're one of them, you are screwed. I'm breaking down the numbers and showing you exactly the position that Etsy is in and what you need to do to capitalize off of this before everybody else catches on. Because the sellers who lose everything are the ones who wait until it's too late. And the ones who win are the ones that are moving right now while everybody else is still in denial. So let's get into it. All right, let's break down what's happening on the Etsy side of things. You've felt that drop in orders, right? Your sales aren't what they used to be. Here's exactly why. Now, the Q2 numbers were bad. Numbers were declining, sellers were frustrated, and Etsy's response was, we're going to change our marketing strategy. They had you shorten your listing titles and they tweaked the algorithm again. So we all waited for Q3 hoping that things would improve. But the Q3 results came out and they didn't. They actually got worse. So let me walk you through the actual numbers because this is extremely important. Now, the first number we're going to talk about is gross merchandise sales. That's the total value of everything that was sold on the platform. That was down 6.5% to $2.7 billion. So right off the bat, people are spending less money on Etsy overall. The entire pie is starting to shrink. Now, why is that happening? Well, it's all because of this next number. Active buyers were down 5% to 86.6 million. So there are literally fewer people shopping on Etsy than last year. Fewer potential customers browsing the platform, looking at your t-shirts, your mugs, whatever it is that you are selling. You've probably noticed it, haven't you? Less traffic to your shop, fewer views on your listings. This is why. And when you have 5% fewer buyers, they're spending less money. Of course, gross merchandise sales are going down. So this all makes sense, right? But here's where it gets really concerning. Active sellers were down nearly 11% to 5.5 million. Think about that for a second. Sellers are leaving the platform in masses, almost 11% fewer sellers than last year. So now you might think, well, fewer sellers means less competition for me. But that's not how it works. Because when sellers are leaving in masses like this, it's because they can't make money anymore. The platform isn't working. This isn't just some temporary slump. This directly affects your ability to make sales and grow your print-on-demand business. Now, these numbers, declining buyers, declining sellers, declining sales, came out on October 29th. And on that same day, Etsy announced that their CEO was stepping down. So with all of this change, what makes it even worse is that sellers are noticing these slips. Listen to what actual Etsy sellers are saying right now. One seller in the Etsy community forum said, I have to say, sales are really terrible over the last 2 months. I went from selling 20 to 30 items per week down to about 5 per week. And another seller in the same thread said, my numbers are down 75%. And it's not just a few sellers. This is a pattern. One seller who has been on Etsy since 2016 said, I was once a 6-figure shop with my husband. Since the pandemic, sales have slowly declined, and just recently I went from making $800 to $1,000 a week to maybe $250 if I'm lucky. You know what else sellers are complaining about? Offsite ads. If you make over $10,000 a year on Etsy, you are forced into their offsite ads program. That's where Etsy advertises your products on Google, Facebook, other platforms, and then charges you 12 to 15% on the sale when someone clicks through. And that was the big change that Etsy was making to their marketing strategy. You end up having no control over it. You are just forced in. And sellers are noticing something interesting. One seller on E-commerce Bytes said that in February, do a search on Etsy. Nearly every item listed is an ad by seller. Etsy's sales are down, but revenue is up because they are milking the sellers. They continued, costs are up. Frustrations are up. Search inclusion is a nightmare. So while your sales are declining, Etsy is making more money off of you through forced advertising fees. You're paying more to make less money. How does that make any sense? Are you starting to see the pattern here? So on October 29th of 2025, alongside these declining Q3 numbers, Etsy announced that Josh Silverman will be stepping down as CEO and will be replaced by Kruti Patel Goyal, their Chief Growth Officer, effective on January 1st, 2026. And when they made this announcement, the stock immediately dropped 12%. Think about that. The market's reaction to these earnings and this leadership change was to dump the stock. Investors saw this news and they were out. And it's not just about this one announcement. The stock has been in free fall for years. Etsy's stock is down 77% from its pandemic peak. It went from being $294 per share all the way down to about $60, $70 per share. The market's reaction is clear. The question is, what does this mean for your business? But before we get into that, here's where the numbers really get interesting. Throughout 2025, this same year that you've been dealing with the declining sales, Josh Silverman, the CEO, has sold over $26 million worth of Etsy stock. And these are documented SEC filings, not rumors, not speculation, public record. So let that sink in. While you're watching your Etsy sales decline, while you were stressing about the algorithm changes, while you were trying to figure out how to maintain your margins, the CEO was selling tens of millions of dollars in stock because he knew he would be stepping down. Now, all of this was pre-planned, but when you're selling $26 million in a single year, that is extremely significant. And here are more numbers just for context. In 2024, Etsy's CEO made $17.9 million in total compensation, with his base salary of $660,000, but with bonuses, stock options, and other incentives, he took home almost $18 million. And you want to know what compares to the average Etsy employee? His compensation was 84 times the median employee salary of $214,000. And compared to you, the average print-on-demand seller on Etsy, you're probably making $20, $30, maybe $50,000 if you're doing really well. Compare that to his $18 million that he made last year. And now, as part of his transition, he's getting another $8 million in an equity award as part of becoming executive chairman through 2026. And the new CEO, she's getting a $16 million equity award just to start the job. So you're struggling to maintain your profit margins after the fees, your production costs, but the executives at Etsy are securing multi-million-dollar compensation packages. The money is flowing somewhere, just not to you, the sellers. And it's not just these executive packages that are taking the money away from the platform, but Etsy over the years has also had horrible acquisitions. They've tried buying multiple marketplaces and end up selling them for much cheaper than what they were purchased for. So just think about that. For that acquisition of these marketplaces, it was about $500 million total. Not invested in fixing search or lowering fees or fighting spam or bringing more buyers to the platform. It was spent on acquisitions that ended up flopping. Now, there is one acquisition that's working, called Depop. In Q3 2025, Depop's gross merchandise sales were up 39.4% to $292.1 million. Active sellers up 40.8% to 3 million, and active buyers up 38.8% to 6.6 million. And here's the interesting fact. Kruti Patel Goyal, the new incoming CEO, was the CEO of Depop before returning to Etsy as Chief Growth Officer. So the one acquisition that's thriving, that's the one that she actually ran, which could be seen going two different ways. One, she was able to really grow Depop, but at the same time, is the focus now going to shift from Etsy more towards the Depop acquisition? Because if Depop is showing all of these positive signs while Etsy's just kind of showing its slow decline, which one do you think the company is going to focus on? Probably not the one that's slowly declining, but the one who's showing rapid growth. So if you find all of this really interesting and now you're starting to see the full picture, You then understand that every single one of these data points affects you as the seller. 5% fewer buyers means less traffic to your shop. 11% fewer sellers means that the platform isn't working. Forced offsite ads taking 12 to 15% of your sales. Algorithm changes tanking your rankings without warning. Raising ad costs from competition makes customer acquisition more expensive. And the AI spam that's on Etsy is burying your listings in search results. So you've felt all of this. Now you know the numbers behind all of this. But here's the reality. You're building your business on rented land. You spent hours designing that perfect t-shirt or that perfect mug. You figured out your niche. You got your first sales. You built momentum, and all of that can disappear overnight if Etsy changes their algorithm or just decides to close your shop. You don't own your customer list, so you can't email them when you launch new designs. You also don't own your reviews. All of those 5-star reviews that you worked so hard for are locked on Etsy. You don't own your traffic. Etsy controls who shows up in the search and how your listing is ranked. It's time to get off the marketplaces and switch to becoming an independent brand and switching to Shopify. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Doesn't Shopify have all the same risk? No, and here's exactly why. Shopify is not a marketplace. Etsy is a marketplace where you are competing with millions of other sellers for the exact same buyers. Shopify is simply a website hosting platform. It's infrastructure. It's a tool that you use to build your store for your customers. If something ever were to happen to Shopify, which honestly is extremely unlikely, given that they are one of the largest e-commerce platforms out there, you could migrate to WooCommerce, BigCommerce, really any other website hosting platform. And your customer data, you own all of that. Your product listings, you own them. You just reconnect your Printify store and rebuild your site on any other platform. With Etsy, if the platform declines or closes your shop, you're starting from zero. But I get it. Shopify sounds extremely complicated. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know how to drive my own traffic. And that's where BuildMyPOD.ai comes in. It is an AI software that builds your print-on-demand store for you. You simply pick your niche like pets, and it builds your entire store. From the policies to the Printify integration to the site design, all the technical stuff is done for you. Over 98% of the entire process of getting your Shopify store up and running is completed in a matter of minutes. And then all that you need to do is simply copy your existing Etsy listings and add them to your new store. Same winning designs, same winning products, just on a platform that you have control over. Now, you'll still want to customize your descriptions to be how you want, add your logo, set your brand colors, change the typography, but the hard technical stuff that makes most print-on-demand sellers give up on Shopify is done for you. And once your store is up, I have a completely free course that walks you through running Facebook ads and driving your own traffic for your store. Here's the thing. If you're successfully selling on Etsy right now, you can absolutely succeed on Shopify because you've already done the hardest part. You've proven that your designs sell. You know your niche. You know your pricing. You know that your product market fit. You have winners. You just need to take those winners from Etsy and put them on your own brand. Then drive traffic through Facebook ads. And yes, you're going to need to learn how to do ads and you're going to need to learn how to market. But if you were relying on Etsy's traffic, you were already at the mercy of their algorithm. At least with Facebook ads, you control the traffic. You own the customer relationship. You can retarget visitors, build an email list, create a brand that people remember. You can't do any of that on Etsy. So I get it. Change is scary. What if I can't get traffic? What if Facebook ads don't work? What if I lose everything that I've built? Those are all legitimate fears. Every print-on-demand seller has them. But here's what the data is telling us. We know that the CEO sold $26 million in stock. We know that buyers are down 5%, sellers are down 11%, sales are down 6.5%, and the stock is down 77% from its peak. Dropped another 12% when the CEO was announced, and actual sellers reporting a 75% sales decline. The company spent 400 to 500 million on acquisitions that ultimately flopped. You've felt all of this happening. Now you've seen the numbers. This isn't a temporary dip. When you have consecutive quarters of decline across buyers, sellers, and sales, that is a pattern. So when Etsy continues to decline or becomes less relevant, thousands of print-on-demand sellers are going to scramble to figure out their next move all at once. They'll all be trying to build Shopify stores, compete for ad space, learn Facebook ads, all at the same time. But you have the choice right now. You can be one of the sellers who sees the data and makes your move before everybody else catches on. You can take your winning designs, the ones that you know sell, and move them to a platform that you control. Spend the next few months learning Facebook ads, getting your first sales, building your customer list. Learn this as you're still able to get sales on Etsy. Or you could just wait and see what happens. But the window is open right now, and the data is telling you it's the right move. Now, I'll put the link to buildmypod.ai in the description because it was built specifically for helping print-on-demand sellers get started on Shopify easier than ever before. And don't worry, the link to the Shopify print-on-demand course where I walk you through exactly how we start from launch all the way to running the marketing is linked in the description as well. How to test designs, scale winners, build a sustainable business that you ultimately have control over. You've already proven that you can sell. You already have winning designs. Now, put them on a platform where you own the customer relationship, where you control your destiny. If you enjoyed this video and this data opened up your eyes, please like and subscribe to my channel. It would absolutely mean the world to me. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.